Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's going on, everyone? Hope you're having a great September. I'm super excited about this video because it's something that I learned about in the last month or so, and it's something that was affecting me. If you've ever kind of felt like your allergies were out of whack, maybe you were just dealing with symptoms that might sound like they were allergic reactions, but you couldn't quite figure out what the deal was, it could be a histamine intolerance. So in this video, we're gonna dive into all the specifics around what histamine is, what an intolerance means, and why the heck are we talking about this in a carnivore diet channel, and why do I think it's relevant for a lot of people. So a lot of people in modern society will go on anti-histamine drugs. They'll take things like Zyrtec or Benadryl, and what they're doing is they're blocking a molecule in the body called histamine, which is causing inflammation and an allergic reaction, an immune response in the body towards the sort of foreign experiences that the body is experiencing. This is not the best thing that's going on. And I think for most people, they just don't even know what this is. And so we're gonna break it down in this video and really dive into the specifics. And just to recap again, histamine, it's kind of like an allergic reaction where some of the symptoms that can happen when you have a buildup of histamine in your body is you could have acid reflux in your gut, you could have rhinitis in your sinuses where the mucus layer gets inflamed. You could have hives in your skin from breaking out from an allergic reaction because histamine is actually a neurotransmitter in your body that signals an immune response when your body thinks that it needs to bring in more blood flow, bring in more white blood cells, bring in more sort of like protective immune function because it thinks that there is something going on that's not good. So that brings me into the specifics here of what a histamine is, and it's a neurotransmitter. It's used to create stomach acid, it's used to help protect the body. It's really there to keep us healthy and allow our bodies to naturally protect themselves. It's technically a neurotransmitter, it's an immune system chemical, and it's found in the nervous system as well as in the gut. It's really an important messenger molecule of our bodies. It helps us stay strong, it helps us kind of be on top of any sort of reactions that we're having that we need to actually address. And it also plays a key role in our alertness. So it's being as a neurotransmitter and kind of being an excitatory type chemical molecule in the body, it plays a key function in our alertness. So when you hear people that take Benadryl and just getting drowsy or knocking out with like Zyrtec, it's not like an unusual reason for that. They're actually blocking one of these key messengers that allows us to be alert, which is histamine. So histamine intolerance is kind of misleading because you're not intolerant to histamine. You're actually struggling with an overload of the histamine molecule, the histamine neurotransmitter in your body. Your body's basically produced more than you can handle. And what's happening now is you're seeing it sort of spill over and the side effects of having so many parts of your body reacting to the neurotransmitter and through its purpose of what it's doing. So what's happening is you have a bucket, say in your body, of a certain amount of threshold that you can handle of histamine, and you produce enzymes in your body to regulate the amount of histamine that your body builds. But if you have the lid of the bucket is here, say, and your histamine levels are here, up until you get to maybe almost to the full top, your body is fine. You can process histamine, you have histamine in there, it's doing its job. But when it gets to a certain level, that's when the symptoms of all the reactions that are being triggered by the histamine messenger molecule and how your body deals with that, whether it's inflammation, swelling, sinus pressure, things like that, it's basically becoming a problem at that point. And so people will turn to antihistamines, but we're all about root cause illness, right? All about solving the source of the problem, not addressing the symptoms and putting band-aids on a broken situation. And in this case, histamine intolerance is typically something you can actually work on. So your body has two enzymes that naturally allow it to process and metabolize the histamine once it's building up. So it has an enzyme called HNMT, which is primarily in the nervous system, and that allows it to metabolize histamine. And it also has another one called diamine oxidase. And diamine oxidase is produced in the gut, in the kidneys in particular, And that helps you break down excess histamine and make sure you have a good equilibrium. If you have a deficiency in these, which you can test for, you can see accumulations and buildups of histamine. Now, don't freak out. Most people don't have a deficiency. It's not a big thing. But as we go further into the video, you're gonna see a lot of people can be taking in a lot of histamine, and it can build them up. It can fill up that bucket and get them to a point where they are starting to see symptoms and reactions, which we can address the root cause of to get you back to equilibrium. So on that note, I don't think antihistamines are a good idea. Of course, if you're trying to address the issue and you're not sure if the sinus pressure you're experiencing is because of histamine, you might try taking an antihistamine and seeing if that helps. And that could be an indicator that you are higher in histamine levels than what you should be. The big thing is we can do a few different things to test for histamine. We can prick your finger and see, there's a prick test. It's only about 79%, 80% accurate. We don't really know if that's a reliable source to really verify if you have an histamine intolerance. We can also test your diamine oxidase levels in your enzymes and see if you're low on that. And that could be a good measure to kind of see where you're at. But again, it doesn't really conclusively identify if you have histamine intolerance. So the big thing here is you need to look at your diet. And this is what the channel is largely about, the carnivore diet. The idea that you're doing an elimination diet, getting rid of the root cause of the nutrition that's triggering you. And what actually builds up histamine, there's big things, right? One is your environment, the allergens that are in the environment. The other is food. There's a lot of food that is high in histamines, not to mention the enzyme blocking stuff. So you can take NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, Tylenol, for example. You can take antidepressants. You can take antihistamines. You can take arrhythmetics, which are things like propantheol, which help with beta blockers, things like that for people who are using those. And all of these things can help you, but they also can inhibit the function of the enzymes which metabolize histamine. So if you're taking those, it could be that you're reducing the amount of DAO in your body that's actually able to metabolize the buildup of histamine in your body. The other thing to think about is if you're eating foods. So there are certain foods that are much higher in histamines. In particular, at the top of the charts is sausages. I know this kind of stinks as a carnivore. You're kind of like going, well, man, like my vice, for example, was pork rinds. And I would eat a bag of pork rinds every day or two. And I really just love pork rinds. It's a great little snack. The problem is the food is cooked in its own fat. It's got a lot of things in there that probably aren't good. And pork in particular is high in histamine. So histamine-rich foods, other histamine-rich foods that we can go through. Think all things sausage meats, all smoked meats. I know I love smoked salmon. Unfortunately, it's high in histamines. Smoked anything is gonna be higher in histamines. Sausage, pork, bacon, salami, ham. It's a sad day for carnivores, but these things you have to be careful of. I'm not saying you can't eat them at all, but I am saying that if you do eat them and you notice the symptoms of high histamine, of histamine intolerance, it could be that you're taking in too much histamine in your diet. And these items, if you remove them and you go on an elimination diet of histamine, high histamine foods, you could see your symptoms reduce and you could then isolate that as an issue. Other things that are less carnivore related include canned foods, pickled foods, fermented foods. These are also very high in histamines. Canned fish, sardines, mackerel, tuna. Sardines, not as much as tuna and mackerel, but still, again, anything that's kind of canned. Legumes, spinach, peanuts, and tomatoes. So that's a big list of things. And when you go through these lists of foods and you talk about what triggers people, sometimes you're wondering, like, what can you actually eat? Well, the good news is there's a lot you can eat on a low histamine diet. And again, this video is just really to inform you and share my experience where if you're eating a lot of pork, for example, a lot of bacon as a carnivore, or you're eating a lot of rinds or sausages or cured meats, or just smoked fish and smoked meats, these could be triggers for you building up higher levels of histamine and then giving you symptoms of inflammation, of less than optimal feelings of wellness. And so the idea here is that really the best solution for this whole thing is to become aware of that. Knowledge is power when it's applied, and look at your diet and see if there's places where you can actually remove these items, because histamine is not the enemy. Histamine is a critical thing for your alertness. It's critical for your immune function. It's absolutely important for your body and your vitality. But if you're getting too much of it and you're not allowing the enzymes to break it and metabolize it down, and you're continually fueling your body with foods that bring in a lot more of it, then you could have a buildup and it could be a negative effect on your overall wellness. Okay, another thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention in the informational video was ways to deal with the histamine overload. So the first one is elimination diet, and that's the best, I think the best way to approach it. Think about those things I mentioned, smoked meats, salmon, canned meats. If you're not a carnivore, go through the list. You can Google a list of high histamine foods. In general, as a carnivore, think pork. Anything from a pig is going to be high. Anything smoked is going to be high, and how it's processed. So the more fresh the meat, the less histamine it's gonna have. So if you have a fresh cut of steak and you just blanch it lightly and it's basically a rare cut you're eating, you're gonna have low histamine. If you have something that's been cooked and packaged and processed and it's been stored away, it's gonna have higher levels of histamine in general. So that's kind of a general rule. There are a couple things you can do to help. We talked about elimination diet, like I said. The other thing is I take grass-fed supplements from Ancestral Supplements. This is their kidney. The reason I take their kidney is because, frankly, I'm not a big fan of the flavor of kidney. It's really strong in my experience, and I'll show you here. I actually have a kidney in this pot. So you can see that's like an actual beef kidney, part of one, and there's the fat on the backside. If you eat kidney, is rich in DAO, diamine oxidase. So you can get diamine oxidase supplements. I think I don't know how accurate they are. They sell them synthetically formed. I'm getting it through kidney that I'm eating either in supplement form, which I think is probably not as high in volume, or through just getting kidney. And kidney is very inexpensive. You can get it from the farmer's market. So I would say, if you think you have symptoms of high histamine, think about your diet. Are you actually eating stuff that would contribute to that? Smoked meats, pork rinds, a lot of pork, bacon, foods like that. If you're getting the diet that's higher in those sort of specifics, then cut those out. Try cutting them out for a week or two. See if your sinus inflammation goes down, if the sort of symptoms of allergies go down. That could be a really good sign for you. The other thing is consider adding in something that can fuel your kidneys, help them produce more DAO, and go from there. So I hope you found this video helpful. It was a shorter one than usual, but I really found it quite helpful for myself to kind of identify this source of intolerance in my own body and to kind of address the root causes of it. And I think for a lot of people on the carnivore diet in particular, because there's foods that you want to cheat on that are more accessible, that are still animal products like pork rinds, like bacon, that are a little bit maybe more of the treats that are high in histamines, it's something to consider. So if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share. Let me know what topics you're really intrigued in and what you're interested in. And as always, I hope you guys are doing really great, and thanks for watching.